there. Welcome to Cargo Film Presents. My name's Dave.
I'm Dan.
On Cargo Film Presents, we talk documentary films, and this week we are talking about the Velvet Underground.
We have this chance to combine music and art and films all together. We're sponsoring a new band. It's called the Velvet Underground.
It is a film directed by the celebrated Todd Haynes. He's known for his fiction films like Carol, Far From Heaven, Safe, but this is his first documentary. And in this documentary, he takes a fittingly idiosyncratic approach to delivering a music documentary that captures this band's transgressive sound as well as its era, which was essentially the 60s in New York City. So, Dan, what do you think of Mr. Haynes' first documentary?
Well, as Lou Reed says, well, I guess I just don't know. I guess I just don't know. But is it, I mean, I guess you could consider the Karen Carpenter movie, while not really kind of a quasi-documentary.
Okay.
Although I believe it's now out of circulation because it was
because of rights issues or the family.
The family shut it down.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, I think, this was an interesting week for me because I was doing the real screen jury stuff. So I was watching a lot of films, and this was one of those films. So I don't know if I was tired or I didn't see it in the right setting, cinematic setting.
Well, were you watching films while you were judging those things, or were you watching a lot of TV product as well? Because I know that encompasses quite a wide range.
Yes.
Or do you have your
I think I was overdosing on content because I was watching films for this jury. I was also watching just regular TV content, and then you throw the Velvet Underground by Todd Haynes into the mix. So
yeah,
I don't know. I think if I was
it's like throwing a wrench in the system.
That's right. It was a real wrench. Yeah. And I think if I watched this in my 20s when I was studying and maybe more fluent in experimental cinema, watching Stan Brakhage movies and Maya Deren and New York Underground cinema, I probably would have thought this was like the best documentary out there. But I don't know. I wanted the film to kind of cast a spell on me and envelop me in its magic, and I didn't quite do that. And I was trying to figure it out. I've been trying to figure it out for the past week, and I guess that's why I said the Lou Reed quote at the beginning, because I just don't know. I mean, there are elements. Obviously, it's massively impressive how Todd Haynes was able to conjure this era with these with the use of kind of avant-garde film language, lots of split screens of using archive of the time, because
there isn't that much archive of this band.
Exactly. And unfortunately, as much as you can use avant-garde cinema to try and transport you to that time, like I just wasn't feeling it. Like I just didn't have that thing that's the essence.
I think you're ODing on the TV content. I really do. Listen, I think one of the thoughts I had when I was watching this was too bad I wasn't watching it in a movie theater. I think music docs just generally work better in a theater, and especially with Haynes's kind of visual choices. I think it would have been a lot more fun to watch this on the big screen. He's obviously channeling some of that era's kind of no boundary experimental creativity, as you say, as he's documenting the 60s in New York City, and usually I'm averse to the use of this kind of you call it experimental. It's kind of like sound and image colliding. It's fast cutting, it's collages of images. Because it just leaves you kind of bamboozled. But here, I guess I don't know why I didn't mind it so much. I think I once I told myself to kind of just let my eyes meander and not try to take it all in. It kind of worked. And if I'd watch it again, I'd probably look to see what I missed the first time around. So I don't know. I didn't find it so stylistically challenging. It was, I thought, engaging and didn't come across, at least didn't cross the line into it being annoying. How's that for high praise?
That's fine. Yeah.
That was my first time in New York, and I was appalled. This place is filthy.
I mean, yeah, not to say that I did find it off-putting or annoying, but I guess part of me wanted it to actually be an experimental avant-garde film, like Superstar, the Karen Carpenter story. There was just this disconnect for me between, the like using and referencing avant-garde techniques, kind of formally, and to take you into that time period, and then the storytelling was just very conservative and straightforward. It's like a very much a cradle to almost grave story of Velvet Underground. They just start with Lou Reed and his childhood and John Cale and how they met. It's like a very standard telling, which was like, on the one hand it's like super experimental in some of its style, and on the other hand it's like super conservative, and you're kind of like, I don't know if it really came together for me.
That's interesting. Yeah. I thought the narrative was kind of I've read some, and I don't know this band inside out. I'm not a super fan by any stretch, but I've read some criticism that it doesn't really deepen a lot of important plot points around the band or its members. Like, doesn't get into really the idea of why Lou Reed fired Andy Warhol, as an example. Like, if you're a super fan, you might want to pause there and explore that a little bit further. But I don't know. I didn't really care that he didn't do that. I didn't feel like I was bombarded by facts or plot points. In fact, I thought they were just kind of loosely connected sequences. If people want to read kind of, I'm sure there are books that have been written on this band, that give you the cradle to grave story in a lot more detail. Anyway, for me, the film, it was inspired in its telling, and it was at least it was something different that you get in a music documentary. I remember I was talking about the Miles Davis doc a while back. That seemed to me what you're describing, this cradle to grave, very standard convention. And even stylistically, I understand the point you're making, stylistically that Miles Davis doc was very conventional as well. But I didn't think you were getting those kinds of detailed facts here. I think ultimately the big takeaway, he's kind of presenting this band's unlikely creation and how it occurred and why they became a special band. And the narrative, in fact, I think is a little loosely connected, but it doesn't feel disconnected. It all fit for me, and maybe it was the engaging visual style that just kept me interested throughout, even though I think at 2 hours it might be a little bit long on that front. I think most docs are long anyway, so.
Yeah, maybe my description of cradle to grave is not exactly what I meant. I just meant that it's like very linear.
Yeah.
Like,
Gotcha. Yeah.
From one point to the next. And
I gotcha. Yeah.
And maybe I did want, as you say, more exploration. I don't know. It was just weird, because maybe you're also recently so conditioned by some of these music docs that they do too much, where they try and do everything. They try and tell the story of the band and the creation and how they broke up, but then they also, explore the music. And this film is really not interested that much in the music itself, except, to, again, cement them as as sort of ahead of their time and outsiders, and this kind of mystique that they had around them and the music, which attracted a certain kind of avant-garde audience.
And it was a singularly kind of unique coming together of and I thought, and that's what I enjoyed about it. How did this happen? Well, you toss in an ounce of John Cale and his avant-garde stuff. You get Lou Reed and his his songwriting, right? And I get more pop sensibility. And of course, then you gotta zhuzh it up a little bit there with some Andy Warhol magic, to present it to the public, and you get the Velvet Underground. I mean, I don't know how influential. I mean, I don't think they were influential while they were in existence, this band, but you get the impression, over the years that they have become influential. But by the end of this film, you're kind of, at least I was convinced that this was a unique kind of boundary pushing band that came out of a very specific time and place, and kind of was contrary to anything else that was going on in pop music culture at that time. So I don't know. I think it's a cool New York story.
Cinema, money, parties. It was outrageous.
People came because the cameras were running. They thought they could become famous.
And setting is such a significant part of this story, right? Like, as anything else that kind of gave rise to this band and the film, I think does a great job kind of connecting the spirit of what was going on during that time, all that creative artistic freedom and experimenting in downtown New York, and the band's sound. And again, so it's not such a profound thought, but it's not something I probably didn't already know, but it connected some of those dots a little bit more, and it gave me that vibe and that mood. It communicated that mood very nicely.
Yeah, it's true. I guess we, sometimes undervalue or underestimate, how influential and how important a band like the Velvet Underground, is and was, and all the kind of, style it birthed, and, maybe that really is the legacy of it. I mean, you don't have, you wouldn't have the sort of New York, downtown scene, this sort of, anti-society kind of nihilism,
right.
Bleeds into punks, all that stuff, at least seems to, can be traced back somewhat to, Lou Reed and John Cale and Maureen Tucker and I'm forgetting the other members'
Sterling Morrison.
Yeah, Sterling Morrison. Yeah, but at the end, in general, though, I was expecting more from Todd Haynes.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And I was expecting something more, something really experimental.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get it. It pissed me off. I don't know. And this is like,
right.
Like
I think had he made that choice, he might have, lost a lot of folks. So,
absolutely,
so he couldn't have pushed that too hard.
You couldn't have this film on Apple,
right? Exactly right.
Film.
That's right. It would be on Criterion or
exactly.
Movie.
Yeah. But
yeah. Well, let's talk quickly. There's always one thing. I always have one axe to grind in every film, and in this one, I don't know how you felt. I've read some reviews and people kind of spoke fondly of him, but Jonathan Richman, I know he was present, and Jonathan Richman is a musician. I forget what band. Do you remember, the Moderns or something? Or
sounds about right.
Yeah. Anyway, he's your stand-in for your super fan, and I get that it's nice to have somebody like that, who is kind of conduit for the kind of the excitement that a fan felt for being there on the scene and who knew these guys, but I mean, I just, outside of his, bubbly enthusiasm, I just never thought he had anything profoundly interesting to say about, hanging out with the band and knowing the band and being there, except that he is practically hyperventilating, reminiscing about the band. I just tuned out every time it came on, man. I couldn't deal. But so that was only the only misstep for me, with this film. It's like he just didn't add anything, and I guess they hoped that his enthusiasm would carry the day, but it didn't for me. So
I think he overstayed his welcome.
Yeah.
Problem. Like when he first popped up, you were like, Jonathan Richman, like totally would not expect the Velvet Underground to have influenced him and his style,
right.
I understand anyway, sort of, folk, sort of witty songs,
right.
And it was fun to hear him talk about, going to their shows and, meeting the guys and hanging out backstage. But then, he just kept appearing, and you're like, I think you have said your piece, and It's time
Yeah.
to move on.
Yeah. One last thing I want to mention is I thought there was a funny sequence when the band, these guys dressed in black, looking morose and so on, strung out on various drugs, and show up in LA. I just could not stand the place, right? Because they're showing up in LA during the height of the hippie era, and these guys were like, what the hell are these guys going on about? What is this peace love stuff? Which is interesting, because despite the kind of the creative I don't know, generosity that they had for themselves in New York, by experimenting and all these things, they still didn't discard, their very gritty New York roots, when they were outside in the world. I think that was probably just a very sheltered experience, but out in the world, that stuff was still down and dirty, and you can't trust anybody. So anyway, but that was funny.
That was pretty funny because it seemed more of a problem or a difference in, attitude, style, politics, really, than actual music. Because if you listen to the Velvet Underground music, and obviously its influences comes a lot from drone music, which is, you can sort of trace back to Eastern, kinds of music, which you would think would appeal to certain,
yes,
on the West Coast.
However, do you remember the story that John Cale, and John Cale's great in the movie, in this film, but his story was that, well, maybe in LA they would have found inspiration in those Eastern sounds, but they were getting their inspiration from the droning of the refrigerator in their living room, which probably happened to be right next to their bed, with the way they were living in these, small New York apartments.
His music sounded like nothing else. And all of a sudden, it would stop like that, and the audience would be dead silent. The Velvet Underground had hypnotized them.
1, 2, 3.
So there you go.
There you go.
Explains the difference.
One maybe is getting the influence of frequencies from refrigerators, the other's frequencies of whales.
Yes, exactly.
Something found in nature.
Yeah, hilarious. Yeah, well, no, it does speak to how they were worlds apart. So yeah, any other last thoughts?
No. Do I have any other last thoughts? No. I mean, it certainly didn't help the portrayal of Lou Reed.
No, that was something I did like about it, though. He didn't hold back by portraying him as a jerk. I mean, it sounds like from all accounts he was a bit of a jerk, right?
It sounds like it. Yeah. I mean, it's his reputation as being kind of an abrasive, sullen, antagonistic dude, and that, leaning heavily on John Cale's account certainly pushed it in that direction.
Sure.
Not that I'm, a big fan of Lou Reed or anything like that, but it just, it was just interesting, thinking about him and his career, like the fact that he just wanted to be a pop star. He wanted to be, a rock and roll star, and this kind of, I don't know, turn into the avant-garde was cool for a bit, but it never really maybe who he, what he saw for himself in his career.
Right.
And again, like you said, we don't really get much into the weeds on that, except that, he sent Sterling over to fire John Cale, which was a pretty shitty thing to do.
Exactly. Well, I guess that's right. Maybe Lou Reed would have been happy just writing and performing songs like The Ostrich, which is a song and dance that he was a part of before the Velvet Underground became formed. Well, I attribute that all to the spell of Andy Warhol, who's a significant character in this film and in the formation of this band, and probably held them together for as long as they did before Lou kicked him out. So
yeah, is the best and the worst kind of producer, in the best sense that he did nothing, and and in the best sense that he just allowed them to gave them the space and the environment to create this kind of extraordinarily new experimental kind of music.
Right.
The worst that, he also seemed like he wanted to take all the credit, and people assumed that he was the Velvet Underground. He didn't do that much to dispel that.
Right. That's that. He didn't do anything to dispel that for sure. But this was loose telling. But however, I mean, did he leave them alone? Like, you think the ideas of having people in leather harnesses dancing on stage with whips was Lou's idea or John Cale's idea? I thought for sure that would have been something that Warhol would have cooked up. And, Warhol was credited with bringing not credited, but forcing the band to take Nico into the mix, right? As well.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's probably part of the worst, forcing creative decisions on them.
Right.
Yeah, I guess it's I forget if it was Lou or John who said, in the studio itself and recording the Banana album, it was just like you could imagine another kind of producer saying like, "Whoa, guys, we need to like take this into a more commercial direction or something that will sell records." But he didn't change the music, or he didn't get involved in any with that. But certainly the marketing decisions around bringing in Nico, because she was a beautiful woman.
Yeah,
were Andy's.
Yeah, brighten things up a little bit, if you can say brighten when it comes to the way Nico sings. But again, Andy Warhol was all about art and commerce. So he let the art be handled by the musicians, as you say, and let the commerce and marketing that goes with the commerce. He was able to conjure some of that magic up. So and that's how you get the Velvet Underground. You can catch this. Would you say on Apple? Right? Yeah, it's on Apple TV Plus. So mixed review here. A thumbs up on my end. So on yours.
Yeah, I would certainly recommend this film. It's just it didn't live up to the hype and the expectations that
you were bringing.
Yeah,
I gotcha.
It's by no means a bad film, or I would
right.
tell people to skip it. I think you should see it, but
Yeah. Good. All right. Well, there you have it. Thanks for checking us out, and we will catch you next time. See you later, then.
See ya.